Boy, are we busy bees these days, and I appreciate the time. I'm assuming we have set the over-under. Chris, what's the over-under number of times we hear his phone buzzing during the conversation at 3.5?
I'm going to say, 3.5 is a great
we'll take
number.
the over on
Always
that.
bet the over.
So what was the decision-making by the Chiefs today? Obviously, we're outside the building, and we saw the Super Bowl. We saw Mahomes is still running for his life because those two tackles weren't there, and now the two tackles won't be there. What's going on here with that decision?
Yeah, so this is one where, obviously it happens this morning. And I think, I think Mitchell Schwartz we knew was coming. He's got some decisions to make about what he wants to do when he gets healthy. So I think, play or not, I think that was, probably not a surprise. The Fisher one, was a surprise. And then you sort of think about it and it really should be obvious because, obviously Patrick Mahomes is running for his life in the Super Bowl. That's why these moves were made. Because Eric Fisher has a torn Achilles, and it is a cold world, but he's not going to be healthy till September or maybe even October. They have to get better at tackle. So if you got Mitchell Schwartz, who just had surgery, Eric Fisher, who's early on in his rehab, that means they need two tackles to start the season. That means they need money to have two tackles to start the season, and that's why this happened. So that's, it was. I knew about Mitchell Schwartz. I did not know about Eric Fisher. But then thinking about it this morning, just like to enter my world a little bit, I was frustrated because, he posted on Instagram, and I'm like, I should have known that was coming. It makes sense.
So what does this mean, Ian, about what to expect? Because we've never seen – there's been a ton of firsts. Man, from a 43-year-old winning a Super Bowl, right, to you doing an interview while microwaving something, to somebody like Wentz underperforming after signing a monster 9-figure deal, and then the guy who was taken in front of him also traded away. It's just there just seems to be different ways of looking at the unparalleled present, and now the cap is down. Like I don't think knock on wood, we'll ever see that again. What are we expecting here over the next 90 hours, Ian? What are you expecting?
It's not a lot of good things, honestly. More of what we've got, and it's weird because this year's been weird for so many reasons. We've had the Deshaun Watson situation, which I think probably has escalated to a point where most of us did not see it going. You have the Russell Wilson situation. Like I remember when we were talking on game day morning during the Super Bowl and teams were calling about Russell, and I was like, this would be interesting to see if, this becomes, and then it all went crazy and now we're here. I think the next week or so is going to be more like, almost like the opposite because what you're going to see is a lot of guys cut, a lot of big names cut that we're used to seeing on the field. And then they'll have the decision, should I accept this lower salary or should I, just wait? And so that's why, it's going to be a weird free agency. There'll be big deals. There'll be excitement. But then you're also going to see some veterans who we know who are Pro Bowlers, who are recognizable names going, I'm not getting what I want. I'm just going to sit here. And it might be a slower free agency than we've seen before.
Well, yeah, the slower free agency, meaning that offers that normally would go out are held back because, a lower or low ball, however you want to view it, offer is on the table. So give me the blockbuster ones that you think are definitely going to get done. Is JuJu Smith-Schuster one of them? Kenny Golladay one of them? Who do you – defensive players one of them? What do you got?
I'm really curious about – Galladay's really interesting. Obviously, he's incredibly talented. Everybody knows that. Didn't play much last year. And then, I think he's going to have a good market, but his own team didn't franchise him. That is at least something that teams are going to look into because they have the space. They could have done it. So why? Is it just fresh start, new coach? You don't want to pay a lot for a receiver when you have Jared? I don't know. But it's definitely something teams are going to look into. JuJu's another one. Big name. Flashy, has played great, has been up and down kind of recently. I wouldn't be surprised if JuJu takes a really, really strong one-year deal and goes, you know what, lowered cap, I'd rather take a one-year bet on myself and go kill it the following year. That actually makes sense to me. So, I think we'll see some, Shaq Barrett will probably get a huge deal. He might he might be the winner of all of this. He might get the biggest deal.
Okay.
Some offensive linemen like Joe Tooney's going to do great. Trent Williams is going to make a ton. Like those more of the guys we're talking instead of like some of the skill position guys like, Aaron Jones or some of the receivers.
Okay, so let's put a pin in one of the names you just mentioned, in Aaron Jones, because I'm intrigued by him. Certainly since somebody like Travis Etienne reportedly ran a 4.4 flat unofficials, I'm seeing from our colleagues at the NFL Network assignment desk and information desk. So what about Shaq Barrett? Let's get into the Bucs, because Jason Light's got a ton of free agents, and they franchise Godwin. They get Levante David to a 2-year. Is Barrett going to hit it with and stay with the Bucs or somebody else? What do you got for me there with the Bucs?
I think everybody hopes it's with the Bucs. I mean, other teams don't. They'd like to sign him, but everyone involved hopes it's with the Bucs. And he's a great player. He has found himself with Tampa Bay. So he's going to make a lot of money anyway. And the Bucs have some gymnastics to do to try to make it happen. But why would he want to leave? Right? Like if I was a pass rusher and Todd Bowles' defense, one, I'd be a lot taller, but two, I would never want to leave. He gets the most out of guys and he helps them be really productive. So I would be surprised if Shaq Barrett ended up leaving the Bucs. That would be a pretty surprising free agent development, I would say.
And the maneuvering that you're saying that the Bucs need to do to, I guess, move things around, shift things around, does that involve Tom Brady getting extended? What do you got for me on that?
I think that's something that's been in the works the last couple of days. It probably ends up as a 1-year extension, trade cap space, a little more guarantee, give them some room this year. And I think anybody who watched Brady sees a player who does not somehow appear to be on the downside. So if he's sticking around at least definitely next year, which I think obviously he is, and maybe the year after, which seems probably the case too, then locking him in for another year and giving yourself cap room makes a lot of sense.
And then do you take that money and give it to Godwin? Or because both Jason Light, when he was on this show, and Bruce Arians said that they feel that they can keep everybody that they need to keep. Who's on the list of the need to keep, do you think, from the 20-some-odd unrestricted? Gronk is one of them, huh?
Yeah, I know he's coming back. They would like him back. I will see what the actual salary ends up being. I don't think he's going to come back for $1. But is he willing to take a pay cut from last year? I find that hard to believe. So we'll see what the actual number is. And then you have Antonio Brown, who wants to be back with the Bucs. They want him back. Brady wants him back. What's that number going to be? As we've learned and we've talked about, it's never going to be as high as you think, especially in this ridiculous year. So what does he end up being willing to accept to play with Tom Brady again? I think that's a legitimate question, and his market's going to be fascinating too.
Ian Rapoport here on the Rich Eisen Show. I fear asking this question because it could be dated literally 5 minutes after it's out of my mouth. But here we are, the Thursday before the new league year begins, and Drew Brees is not announced his retirement yet. As a matter of fact, Greg Olsen has beaten him to the announcement of a retirement that we've all expected. I believe that's going down as you and I are talking. What is going on there, and how does it affect what is going on in New Orleans with all of the cap casualties for that team that had Super Bowl aspirations and still does, obviously? What do you got for me on that?
It does not affect New Orleans cap-wise because we've known he's retiring. We've said it a million times, but it was definitely clinched when he redid his contract. I think it was during Super Bowl week, actually, and basically took the minimum salary this year. And then when he retires, the salaries at the end will go away. And anyway, so he did what he needed to do salary-wise to help the team operate in free agency. So we know he's retiring. He knows he's retiring. He hasn't announced it. What would be hilarious is for him to announce it Wednesday at 11 a.m. or something, when we're all planning to talk about free agency, and now Drew Brees announces his retirement. You have all networks on 100% of the time we're talking about Drew Brees. That would be kind of funny. Actually, that may happen, but it doesn't matter because they are moving on at quarterback, and he's moving on. It just hasn't. He hasn't made an announcement official yet.
And they're moving on to who?
it feels like Jameis Winston to me. I would be surprised if there's anyone else. It's a situation where his market is better. I think he's got the best market in New Orleans. I think they make the most sense for him. He makes the most sense for them. They haven't settled on a number yet, but that's where it feels like it's going.
And where does the quarterback
carousel? I'd be surprised if it's not Jameis.
Okay, so where does the quarterback carousel feel as if it is where it is going with Alex Smith and Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? And also the Bears needing somebody, and the Sam Darnold could be that somebody for someone. What is going on with Jimmy G? I mean, there are so many questions about it. I just kind of will throw it out there and say, where do you see the quarterback carousel going? And let's start with the Watson and Wilson scenarios. Is there any shot?
Well, let's run through it.
Okay, go for it. Let's start with them.
All
what
right.
do you got for me?
Watson, no timeline. If anything happens at all, which I'm not convinced it will, it's not going to be anytime soon. Maybe by the draft, but honestly, maybe not even then. Russell Wilson, I know this team's interested. The Bears have it mentioned. They are definitely interested. I haven't gotten the sense on any momentum toward a trade. And the biggest question for Seattle would be, if you're going to trade Russell Wilson, okay, fine, you're going to get a lot for him. Who's your quarterback? And I don't have an answer to that question, which is obviously a significant problem. I don't get the sense Jimmy G is going anywhere. If the Niners could upgrade, would they trade him? They probably would. I just don't know who would be an upgrade. So I think he sticks there. Darnold probably gets traded. If he gets traded, I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure he's getting traded, but it's going to be more toward the middle of April or maybe even draft week if it happens. Just because that by then the Jets will have settled on who they would take at number 2. You have, Marcus Mariota, who, probably ends up getting released. I think teams are waiting for him to get released, and then he'll factor into this. You mentioned Alex Smith. He's got a lot of interest as a really good backup / mentor, as he should. The Bears make a lot of sense to me because of Matt Nagy. The Jaguars make a lot of sense. I think both of those teams are interested. Did I forget anyone?
No, I'm trying to just pick and choose what my follow-up is. Let's pull on Alex Smith. I mean, so his choice will be starting for the Bears if the Bears finally whittle down their options to him, or he's the Mr. Chips for Trevor Lawrence, for his old college coach. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, would want to. He could sit there. Ryan Fitzpatrick could just go on any team, and he knows he'll be the starter eventually. I mean, that's just the way it always goes for him.
Him going to the Patriots would be perfect. One, he played well last year.
It would complete the. It would complete the superfecta, right? Wouldn't it?
Circle of life.
The AFC East superfecta. He'd hit all 4.
Yeah.
If that happens.
Yeah, and that's. To me, I don't need a reason to see Ryan Fitzpatrick with the Patriots because I think it'll be great. But that's a good enough reason if I needed one.
What is New England's option? What would they do? Where do you think they're going, Ian? That's a fascinating question.
They're going somewhere. Draft would be obviously a big thing for them. Could definitely draft a quarterback. Hard for me to imagine Cam goes back there unless they have no other option. If Marcus Mariota's free, I think they'd have some interest. I don't think Sam Darnold's getting traded there, although that would be kind of funny.
That would never happen. Literally something very warm would have to freeze over so thick and so deep that not even the Fortress of Solitude would match it in terms of the thickness of the ice, to be very honest with you.
Yeah, it would just,
Well, what makes you think
so bad?
What makes you think Jimmy G's not going anywhere? Because obviously that would be, one would think, an option to have him go back.
Patriots would make a lot of sense. It's the same thing as the Seahawks. Like the 49ers, obviously last year they were bad, but they seem like a team that's ready to compete. Who is going to be their quarterback? That's the main problem with all of this stuff is so much of this quarterback talk is out in the open now, which is great because it gives us something to talk about.
Right.
And also it's fun. But the answer is still who is their quarterback that is better than they previously had? And I cannot find an answer to that question.
All right, so let me bounce my crazy fantasy football possibility off of the real football world that you're so attuned to. Watson and Tua switch spots. The Jets trade Darnold to the Niners, who wind up sending Jimmy G to the Patriots. What do you think? And they choose Zach Wilson second overall. What do you think of that? And that all happens, and much of that happens draft week with the Darnold to the Niners and the Niners Jimmy G to the Patriots. Happens the second night of the draft after they choose Zach Wilson the night before. Sort of similar to Josh Rosen. Yeah, it's sort of similar. Or 3 this year that they can exact later on Friday night and 1 the following year. Something like that. What do you think about that?
I think they should do it all. Also, my head would explode sitting there on the set or my little perch on draft night, but I would probably go into shock.
It's not crazy, is it? Is it crazy? Is that nutty?
Yeah, all of it's crazy, absolutely. But I think it'd be fun. And, if I would say this, if the salary cap was not a thing and the Texans were a little more open to dealing Deshaun Watson, and if they like Tua, which I do not know if they do or not, but I don't know. I don't know. That could all be great. Seems a little slightly far-fetched for our universe, but good thought.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Before I let you go, your 2 cents on the Dak signing. What do you think about that one?
One of the best contracts I've seen negotiated by a player and agent in a very long time. And for the Cowboys, I loved what Jerry said. I mean, he's always crazy, but everything of value he's always overpaid for. I thought that was perfect. Yes, he overpaid for Dak. Yes, they could have got him cheaper if they had done him 2 years ago. The reality is the Cowboys end up with a franchise quarterback that's better than most of the other teams that have quarterbacks, and they paid a lot for him, but that's okay because he is very good and he's everything you'd want to be as the face of your franchise. So I'm sad I'm not going to talk about it for the millionth time on TV. And I'm sad that the Cowboys announced it themselves instead of me breaking it. Okay. But otherwise, I thought it was great.
Well, I mean, now we could talk about what Jerry's going to be able to do as the GM, and Steven could be able to do as the de facto GM as well, and how they can actually surround him, how they can protect him, how they can actually win with this contract. That's
makes it easier. Contract makes it easier.
It does this year, though, right? Correct? It makes it easier this year, correct?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's much better than going tag, and then next year, who knows? You know?
What do they do before I let you go? What do they do? What's Dallas doing? What's their next steps?
They're going to end up shopping in the discount section and just build depth. Some offensive line depth, probably, maybe some tight end depth, defensive line like that. It's going to be nothing exciting. Maybe sign Awuzie back. I don't think it's going to be exciting, but they never are that exciting in free agency, but usually effective.
The Filene's basement of the NFL? Is that where they're going? Is that what you're saying?
I thought Filene's is not in business anymore. Is that accurate?
No, it's definitely out of business. Yeah.
I went in New England reference.
I went in Boston. It's supposed to be this institution. I was really underwhelmed.
Ian, thanks for the call. You're now free to microwave whatever you were microwaving. I appreciate the time.
Now I got to re-microwave it now, but yes.
What were you microwaving? What were you doing? What are you doing?
I got a little
lunch?
a little soup and bagel combo I got going on. I got 8 minutes before I got to get ready for TV. So
go. Okay, go for it. There you go. Ian Rapoport. Okay. Soup and a bagel and information. Right here on the Rich Eisen Show. That's all we're looking for. That's all we want out of our guests. Is soup, bagel, and information. Not in that order.